Hey, everybody. Let's go ahead and get into chapter 4, dealing with audience analysis, discussing why your audience is so important to the speech. So let's go ahead and get started. Uh, so, first of all, it's important to discuss how we speak. And when you're confronting an audience, there are really two different angles you can take with discussing or basically setting up your speech for that audience. One is to set it up as an egocentric way, only really caring about yourself, only caring about your message, and caring that your message gets across and not really caring what the audience thinks about it. Or there's also an audience-centered approach, caring about the audience, tailoring your message based on what the audience will actually think about that particular message. And that's really the avenue that you want to take. You want to have an audience-centered approach when you go after an audience or when you put together a speech for an audience. Taking an egocentric approach will only get the audience not to like you, and they won't care about your speech. And maybe that's your point at the beginning, but to be honest, then what's the point of doing a speech anyway? So, the audience-centered approach. And those who are audience-centered will sometimes try to conduct an audience analysis to be able to understand their audiences more, to be able to tailor their message for a particular audience. And there's a couple of ways to do this. Basically, a survey to help sort of understand what the audience may like or dislike. Your goal might be to offend an audience, and that's okay. While this might hurt you in the eyes of the audience, this does not mean that you're egocentric. It means that you're trying to maybe get the audience to see something from a different point of view or see something from a different angle. And that's okay. You can do that. Just don't, go in there and not care about the audience and walk in without really, when insulting them for no reason, whatever that might be. Pay attention to what that audience is looking for. So, let's go ahead and get into the two different types of audience analysis. So the two different types are demographic, which deals with things like age, race, gender, things like that. So characteristics of a group or a population. If you've ever taken a survey, these would be the questions they put at the end of it. So things like age, race, religion, income, education, occupation, political affiliation, where you live, sexual orientation, gender, all of those things would fit into that category of demographics. So you can do a survey, figure out demographics, boom, you know what type of audience you're looking at. So maybe you're looking at an all-female audience or mostly female audience. Or maybe you're looking at an audience that makes, $25,000 or less a year. Whatever that might be, those are some things you can think about when you're preparing your speech so that you're putting together something that the audience will actually care about. So that's what you're looking at with demographics. On the other side, you have what we call situational audience analysis. So these are different situations that the audience may be put into or things that might affect an audience because of the situation. Some examples of this might be the size of the room. If you're in an auditorium, you're going to have a microphone. If you're in a smaller room, you might have to lower your volume. Whatever that might be, you might have to change that because of the size of the room. Whether it's indoors or outdoors. The best story I can give you about this. My graduation lasted about 4 hours because the commencement speaker was the former NFL coach Marv Levy. Now, if you know Marv Levy, he coached the Buffalo Bills to 4 straight Super Bowls. 4 straight Super Bowl losses. And then proceeded to talk to us for 2 hours in 90-degree heat while we're all sitting on bleachers, hot, wearing all black robes. We were told that we had to dress up underneath that, so we're all wearing dress clothes underneath, where he speaks for 2 hours about winning. A man who lost 4 straight Super Bowls gets in front of us and talks to us about winning. He did not have good audience analysis. It was hot, and he was not paying attention to that. Indoors, outdoors. Pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to if it rains, other things like that. You have to look at those things. Stage. If you're on a stage, you can't really sit idle in the middle of it. You have to move around. You have to create an audience movement to keep them occupied or keep them with you. Weather has an impact on that. Also, the lighting in the room, temperature, all of those things have a major impact on an audience, and you have to think about those things when you're putting together your speech. I apologize. I dropped the phone there for a second. There we go. Okay. So temperature, lighting, all of those things have an impact. Comfort of seating, too. I almost forgot about that. You make sure that the seats are comfortable, because if they're not, they don't want to be sitting in them for very long. So we all base our speeches off of we also base them on how an audience may feel about certain issues. We call these dispositions or attitudes towards particular things. There's 3 different categories that we look at. We call this attitudinal audience analysis. This is, I said there were 2 types. There is sort of a 3rd type. I sort of lumped this in with situational as well. But speakers, I should say, we have dispositions or attitudes towards particular speakers we may or may not want to listen to. We have dispositions towards occasions we may or may not want to be a part of. Most people love weddings. I dislike going to weddings. Not a big fan. I don't like toast. I don't like drunken toast. Not a big fan. Being a speech person, somebody giving a drunken toast is like nails on a chalkboard for me. I absolutely hate it. And then topics. So I dislike hearing speeches on things that I've heard over and over and over again. So this may give you a general idea of what I call tired topics. Things like the death penalty, same-sex marriage, marijuana, abortion, organ donation. These are all speeches that I've heard about 300, 400, 500 times. I really don't need to hear them again. I don't really need to hear how to change your oil. I don't really need to hear a speech again on how to, if it's a different type, how to bake cookies, whatever that is. But I've heard the same speeches over and over again. You want to try to vary it up. You want to try to have something different. You want to, search for something that your audience is really going to be like, want to sink their teeth into. And those are sort of some of those things that you may not want to do. So those are 3 different dispositions or attitudes that we call attitudinal audience analysis. So your next discussion is, I want you to develop your own answers to these questions and then post without looking at what others have posted. You may look at what they've posted afterwards, after you post yours, but not until you posted yours. And after the week is over, I will post a video with the real answers to these particular questions. So your second discussion is your quiz about me. And so here are the questions. And no cheating. Don't look up the answers. That's no fun. You want to know this. What is my age? Question 1. What is my hometown? Question 2. What make, model, and color car do I drive? Question 3. What is my favorite color? That's question 4. Question 5. What is my favorite dessert? Question 6, how many people are still living in my immediate family? And hint, they all live in my house. So that would be self, spouse, children, parents, and siblings. 7, what are 2 of my favorite hobbies? 8, what are 2 of my nicknames? One of them you should get just by looking at this quiz. And number 9, how many states out of the 50 states do you think that I have visited? So those are your 9 questions. I want you, again, don't cheat. I don't want you to go to Facebook and look up the answers. I don't want you to go, looking around, asking questions of other people who've taken me in my class. I want you to do this because this is an audience analysis. You're analyzing me. I'm one of your audience members. I want you to, sort of make general, educated guesses about some of these things. I haven't given you all of these answers. I didn't mean to give you all of these answers. This is for you to sort of perceive and make a perception, to decide what you think about me. So those are the 9 questions. Good luck. It's not a real quiz, obviously, but it's the Andy quiz. But I want you to have a little bit of fun with this. Think about, what these answers might be. And I look forward to seeing them in the discussion board. And that's it for Chapter 4. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.